This is part 2 of session 52 of the Law of One. Let's get into wonders, harvest, and knowing the self. Let's begin. Okay, in the last video, we stopped at question 7, which was very deep. And if you didn't watch that video, go watch it because that's really important for what we're going to talk about, especially at the end of this video where they touch again into the knowing of the self. So I'm mentioning this because in this next question, Don is going to assume or make a connection between the information in question 7 and what he believes is the reason why wonders are here. So that's the first question, new material that we have for this video. But I'm just going to go over the question that was in the last video, the last question, which was Don asking about the disciplines of personality, and if it was the knowledge of self and control and all of that. I mean, it was a deep question that you should go watch if you haven't. But just to refresh, what Ross said was that they made a couple of corrections. The first one was no control. Control is not something that we practice for, say, knowing the self, but rather not controlling the self and allowing the self to be is what we want. However, there is one consideration, which is when our actions and our reactions are not consonant with the law of one, then we might take into consideration some restraint. So, this shows once again the thin line between language and what we are, what we do. So that's the correction that they made. And the other things that they said that they would rather think, it's useful is the use of will, of course, is always mentioned. They always mention the use of the will, the direction of the will, actually, because we're always using our will. It's just the direction of the will and the strengthening of the will into a direction that we want, and acceptance of self, forgiveness of self, knowing the self. All of these things are always mixed into what is called spiritual evolution, disciplined personality, or whatever other phrase, name, title, anything we want to call it, which is really just knowing the self. To me, that's the best way to describe it. It's just knowing the self. And knowing the self actually is, so it doesn't get confused, is knowing the real self, the one self, Atman, which is the higher self, not the separate self. That's why sometimes it can get mixed in, with, well, I'm knowing myself and I'd like to do these things. So, the question is for you really to ask, am I really knowing myself, or am I feeding the separate self by doing this? So again, that's a different topic, but this is what was being discussed in question 7, and the new material that we have today is done. We can go straight into that question. When Don heard this answer about the disciplined personality and what it is to accept the self and all this. And so in question 8, Don says, I sense possibly a connection between what you just said and why so many wanderers have selected harvest time on this planet to incarnate. Am I correct? This is a vague notion. It's quite vague, actually. So Ras is going to say, it is correct that in the chance to remember that which has been lost in the forgetting, there is a nimiety of opportunity for positive polarization. We believe this is the specific thrust of your query. Please ask further if it is not. So, let's put into context, this answer, because, Don just made a sort of loose connection here between what it is that any entity is looking for. The purpose of any entity is to seek that knowing of the self. much like any character in your dream has a purpose for you to know yourself. So when you create a character in your dream, it could be a family member, it could be a monster, it could be a tree, it could be anything. Anything in your dream is yourself. So any of those characters or characteristics of your dream are actually informing yourself of yourself. So in the same way, any entity here is the one self, the one mind that exists in the universe, knowing itself through this entity. And you have free will, and that free will is the possibility that you have to direct your will. So this gets into, of course, what free will is and all of that, but think about it as a focus, a narrowing of your focus and attention towards something, towards whatever you want to do. That's depending on you. So coming from that, Don is saying, is this the reason why wanderers came here? To say, increase the knowledge of the self, of the entity, for the creator, because knowing the self is just service to the creator. That's why, some people say in service of the one, because everything that you do is in service of the one creator, no matter what you do. And that's why negative entities and the elite powers and all of this are serving the one creator as well, because they're making the creator know itself through these archetypes that we have specifically here in the sun, or this logos. So in any case, so that's the connection. And then Ra says that yes, it is correct that by undergoing the process of forgetting who we are, because through the veil, once again, once we pass the veil, once we graduate and we are able to gaze at the glory of the universe without the veil, then for you to incarnate again here, you have to go through the process of forgetting. That is through the veil. So in going through this process, there is an overabundance. That's what namiety means. It's an excess of, or an overabundance, or a vast amount that exists of opportunities for positive polarization. Of course, we can see that here. We are in this process, so we can see the vast amount of opportunities that we have for positive polarization. We believe this is the specific thrust of your query. I think, that's, I don't think that was, let's find the next question, what Don wanted to say. I don't remember. So Don in question 9 says, well, I would just include the question as to why time of harvest is selected by so many wanderers as time of incarnation. So this is the direction of where Don wanted to ask. So why? Why is harvest attracting so many wanderers? So Ra says, there are several reasons for incarnation during harvest. They may be divided by the terms self and other self. The overriding reason for the offering of these brothers and sisters of sorrow in incarnative states is the possibility of aiding other selves by the lightening of the planetary consciousness, distortions, and the probability of offering catalyst to other selves, which will increase the harvest. So here we're going to explore the different reasons why a wanderer incarnates in third density, actually, but on planet Earth, which is what we're concerned with. Ra says that there are several reasons for incarnation, and we're going to explore them. They may be divided into terms of self and other self, and we're going to see why that is. Now, notice, I know sometimes, and I know because I've read it like this in the past, every time I read self, it seems like it's selfish. Like, okay, we have selfish reasons, and then we have other selves, and then it's selfless reasons. But that's not the context here, and that's why they say self and other self. It's almost like, you're doing it for you eat for your stomach, but you're also doing it for your liver and for your brain and for your toes. So it's for the self the localized self that is experiencing reality in this time, or in this case, the food is being experienced by the stomach, but that eventually goes into the whole system, into the whole organism. So any experience that is done for the self is always for the other self. So in the case of service to self, the service to self is serving the creator, whether they know it or not. When you're serving others, you're serving yourself as well. So it's always self interacting with self. Much like, again, in the dream, you are interacting with a portion of yourself. You cannot say that the person that you saw in your dream was someone else. It is all in your mind. And I don't want to get into the possibilities, which I know it's true. You can get influence, but that's very deep into how you can have influence, but you are getting, say, influence from another entity that may influence your dreams. However, the influence is going through your mind, and you can see how you are projecting yourself. Again, it doesn't matter if you have another entity in your dream, an angel, a demon, whatever it is that you want to call it. It is through the influence and the sensitivity of your mind that can be manifested. So there's no escape here. There's always a self and another self. So again, that's just my clarification and emphasis on this. This may be divided into terms of self and other self. So this is just for consensual reality that we're going to talk about it. And it's going to make sense as we go through. So the overriding reason for the offering of these brothers and sisters, that would be the wanderers, in incarnative states, in this body form that we have, is the possibility of aiding other selves by the lightening of the planetary consciousness distortions and the probability of offering catalyst to other selves, which will increase the harvest. So by the simple nature of wanderers being here, there is a natural vibration, an intuition, if you will, that is natural in these entities. And that is like a rock in the lake or in the river. It's causing a sort of distortion to the currents, to the movement of the water. By its sheer presence, it's causing a sort of influence. The same influence we were talking about in the dream. So you can actually think of yourself, if you consider yourself a wanderer, which very likely you are, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this content, especially in these times where everybody's concerned with the external world. So by knowing this, you know that you are another character in the dream with a specific influence, which we call vibration. That vibration is actually alleviating the load of the distortions of the planet, and the distortions being all this friction that we have against what is coming, what is inevitable, which is the fourth density transition. There is, to me, I don't see it as a way of liberation or as a way of judgment for whatever. It simply is what is. And I don't need to know what it's going to entail, even though we know a lot about it in the raw contact. But all we care is that we are here to do what we can for balancing the planet as it is. So that is the first purpose of a wanderer when it comes here. It has the opportunity, and this is a beautiful opportunity for any wanderer, because it serves the creator. I don't want to say it serves the entity. It serves the creator as a whole, which they are inclined to. This is their direction. Every wanderer has a direction to serve the creator in its own way. And when they're here, they serve the creator by contributing their vibration to the planetary whole. And that is one great reason to be here, especially because with the direction that we were going with planet Earth, I believe that wanderers actually shifted that consciousness by, I don't know, I can't even describe it, but by the amount of wanderers that have been coming here, I believe that's what happened. There was just a huge influx of wanderers that completely shift the direction in which we were going. So it's actually surprising that we are here on planet Earth and we didn't destroy it ourselves, as we actually did in Maldek and in Mars. So we seem to have learned the lesson, or helped learn the lesson, in this Pacific Logos, which was very bellicose, and Ra has said before. So, all right, there's more to say, of course. There's more to cover with this answer. And Ra says there are two other reasons for choosing this service, which have to do with the self. The wanderer, if it remembers and dedicates itself to service, will polarize much more rapidly than is possible in the far more etiolated realms of higher density catalysts. So, this is what I would call the specific self, the entity, how that works. Now, the entity is contributing with its own vibration to the environment, but at the same time, just like the rock is contributing to certain distortions and vibrations to the water that is moving the current, in the same way the water is causing some sort of influence into the rock. It's eroding it in this case. Well, in this case, we can say we are eroding our own distortions by allowing this reality to go through us. And this is the other reason why a wanderer would like to come here, because they can alleviate those distortions and polarize even more rapidly than it is far more possible, or that is possible in other etiolated realms of higher density catalysts. This is a phrase that I like to make a little emphasis to. They say the wanderer, if it remembers and dedicates itself to service, that would be a wanderer that has recognized its own nature and dedicates itself to the service of others, will polarize much more rapidly than is possible. Okay, so it'll polarize really fast and with higher possibilities than in other realms, basically, where catalyst is a lot weaker. Let's just put it that way. Etiolated. That's what it means. It means kind of weakened, diluted, sort of pale type of adjective. So in terms of catalyst, that's what they're referring. Now remember, Raha said that in third density, catalyst is 100 times more potent than other densities. So that's exactly what they mean here. You know, in other densities, catalyst is very, very mild, whereas here is a lot potent. So that's what they meant there, for sure. And that is the other reason why Wanderer is here. It's to polarize itself with the amount of catalyst that is available here at the same time that they're being of service. So there is a final reason. Ross says the final reason is within the mind, body, spirit totality, or the social memory complex totality, which may judge that an entity or members of a societal entity can make use of third density catalysts to recapitulate a learning teaching which is adjudged to be less than perfectly balanced. This especially applies to those entering into and proceeding through sixth density, wherein the balance between compassion and wisdom is perfected. So, makes sense. Like I said, we are not a separate self. We are, depending on the density, we can see ourselves more in unity. This is a matter of perspective. Of course, the density allows that by the amount of light and information that is able to be processed by the entity itself. Now, you can see that from the lower densities, the sensation of separation is higher than in higher. Now, what does that mean? That as we go into higher densities, the self is no longer considered a separate self, and that's why Ra is considered a single entity they are comprised of several entities. They can see, they can still discern them, but they are kind of blurry to them. They don't see much of a difference between them. It's almost like saying, what's the difference between you and your hand? Is your hand you or is it not? Is it a part? Yes, it has fingers. Are the fingers separate from the hand? Well, they're attached. Well, what about the cells that are there? And so on. So in the same way, it is a matter of perception to see the universe as a one living organism. And depending on where you stand, you can see yourself more separated. That's not to say, obviously, that you can't experience unity in this third density body. You can, and you're encouraged to. That is the great lesson. That is the great catalyst that we're going through, is to ignore the information about separation and to absorb that information that comes naturally through the intuition of the mind into unity. So when we go into this, we see that members of societal entity can judge. Okay, so in this case, we're talking about the social memory complex that exists in sixth density. Mainly, they say that this especially applies to those entering into and proceeding through sixth density. Mostly because they're in the balance between compassion and wisdom, which was in the perfection of this balance. Because in fourth density, you're learning the lessons of love, so you're more concerned with the lessons of love. In fifth density, you're more concerned with the lessons of wisdom. Then in sixth density, you're more concerned with balancing. So that means that wanderers who come from sixth density obviously have more pronounced this reason to be here to balance something that is of a social memory complex nature. Now, let me sort of illustrate this to you in a poetic way, so I can try to show its magnificence. Imagine you're an entity representing a social memory complex from whatever region, most likely Ra, could be from Latui, could be from other Pleiades, whatever you feel like you be. Just imagine the amount of entities that you are representing, and that your makeup right now, whoever you think you are, because it's coming out like that, not the separate self, but whatever you feel you are, that self that is coming out. I just made a video talking about my personal history, and what I feel comes out. It's just my nature of being this, teaching, expressing, just sharing. Not even teaching, it's just sharing. This is what flows through me, okay? So that's just what I would say is. It's not what I am, it's just what is. So whatever you is, that is made for the perfectioning of the social memory complex where you belong. So any distortions that you may have, you may judge yourself as you have a propensity for this, or you have a dislike for that, or you have, something that naturally flows through you, and you say, I can't help it. This is me. And I just hate myself, or I love myself. Whatever it is that you judge about yourself, all of that is definitely a programming which was not understood in your natural or your third density of nature. So that means that in the third density where you graduated from, whatever it was, let's say it was Venus and you're from Ra, and you feel this this propensity towards something, is because nobody in your planet was able to experience this. Nobody in your planet was able to balance this. And the social memory complex, as it stands in the now, which is the ever-present moment, that is being balanced by you. So the amount of work that wanderers are doing is just fascinating in so many aspects. So I hope this kind of helps you illustrate a little bit, especially if you feel a wanderer. So you know your purpose and sort of your ideas of why you're here. What are you doing here? And why are you so weird? Why are you so weird? That is the real question. And here are the answers. So, without weirdness, we go into question 10, where Don says, "Thank you. Just as something that I am a little inquisitive about, not much importance, but I would like to make a statement I intuitively see, which may be wrong. You were speaking of the slingshot effect, and that term has puzzled me. The only thing I can see is that you must put energy into the craft until it approaches the velocity of light. And this, of course, requires more and more and more energy." Don goes on, "The time dilation occurs, and it seems to me that it would be possible to, by moving at 90 degrees to the direction of travel, somehow change the stored energy in its application of direction or sense, so that you move out of space-time into time-space with a 90-degree deflection. Then the energy would be taken out in time-space, and you would re-enter space-time at the end of this energy reversal. Am I in any way correct on this?" So this is a very technical question. I'm just going to read what Ra says and then I'll speculate. Ra says, "You are quite correct as far as your language may take you, and, due to your training, more able than we to express this concept. Our only correction, if you will, would be to suggest that the 90 degree of which you speak are an angle which may best be understood as a portion of a tesseract. So, for anybody who enjoys this, please share with me your comments, because I'm not sure how to dissect this one. But Don is asking basically, what is the slingshot effect, if it works in a certain way. And he seemed to be quite correct according to Ra, and more amazing is that they say that Don is able to express this concept much better than they themselves, because I guess Don had the language to describe this in physical terms, which for some reason Ra can't. I don't know. That's a mystery there. But I don't know if I can say much about this, but in my speculation of the slingshot effect, it seems that this is working with electrogravitics. That's my understanding, at least, and it seems that you can go effortlessly through the universe with this, and it does require energy, of course, some sort of energy that can be used for the sort of it's not even tapping, as far as I know, it's not tapping into 0 point energy, but it's rather using the vortices that exist in electromagnetic fields, which are everywhere. And so using these as a medium of movement, a medium of transport, or traverse the space, or our fabric of space. So how does that work? The 90 degree? I'm not sure. Don seems to suggest that you make a movement in like a 90 degree movement, which Ra specified that it was. You can see this or understood as a portion of a tesseract. A tesseract is a hyperdimensional cube, which means that if you take a square and you take another square and you connect its vertices, its angles, then you have a cube. Two squares connected by their angles create a cube. So that's a 2D into 3D. Now a cube, if you connect with all of its angles with more cubes, you get the shadow of a tesseract in 3D, which you can find on the internet. Just look it up. Tesseract, Tesseract. It's a tesseract, or I believe it's also hypercube. So this hypercube is a 4-dimensional shape, geometrical shape, that describes the extension of a square to a cube, from a cube to a tesseract. And now that we're talking about another dimension that may seem to be the dimension of time. To me, I'm just speculating here. This is all speculation. So that part of time where we shift into time space, as Don suggested, that would be the the angle of the tesseract in which we go into time-space and then go back into space-time, and it seems to, generate a slingshot effect there. Again, I'm just going on, ranting on whatever comes up in my head that I know, but I don't know much about this. So, in any case, this is not important or that important. Even Don acknowledges this and says, "Thank you, just a little point that was bothering me of no real importance." And he goes on and says, "Well, is there then, from the point of view of an individual who wishes to follow the service to others path, from our present position in third density, is there anything of importance other than disciplines of personality, knowledge of self, and strengthening of will?" This is a really good question. So, Ra says, "This is technique. This is not the heart. Let us examine the heart of evolution. Let us remember that we are all one. This is the great learning teaching. In this unity lies love. This is a great learned teaching. In this unity lies light. This is the fundamental teaching of all planes of existence in materialization. Unity, love, light, and joy. This is the heart of evolution of the spirit." So I'm going to pause here because there's more to say. But this is just fantastic. So Don, see, one of the things that are trying to be transcended here or bridged are the intellectual understanding of what must be done and the natural flowing of what is. You see, understanding doesn't come from the external world to us. That's a mean of exploring reality, of learning, okay? But understanding comes from the inside. And when you try to express it in some way, then you lose some dimensions. That's just the nature of it. And so when Don says, let me reread that part, that last part where he says, those things of importance, is there anything else? Is there anything of importance other than disciplines of personality, knowledge of self, and strengthening of will? These are things that, you see, it's almost like a recipe, okay? What's the difference between the recipe and the actual food itself? Never mind the cooking, the recipe and the food itself. So the recipe is, yes, discipline of personality. That's something that comes naturally through the seeker. Knowledge of self is inevitable, and the strengthening of the will is, it's the way. Let's just say, is the way, And Ross says that this is technique. Technique is just technique. It's not the arts. It's not the movement. Technique is what you learn to be, the movement, the action. So technique is that, and that is fine. We can use technique as a sort of measure or way to visualize it, but it's not really, like Ross said, this is not the heart. Let us examine the heart of evolution. The first thing they say is, let us remember that we are all one. This is something that we don't have to intellectualize. The oneness, the unity that we are, is something that can be explored throughout your whole life. And by explore, I mean, it's not something you achieve. You don't achieve, oh, yes, I just clicked that unity and I'm done. I'm there already. That never happens. If you actually did that, you wouldn't be here, because then you would be the whole universe. So as a separate, or I don't want to say separate being, but as an individualized portion of consciousness that is exploring the universe, the maximum you can achieve, say, in terms of perception, is the perception of unity. So the more you explore this, the more you live it, the more you embody it, the more you incarnate that unity here by perception. Of course, you're always going to be, this individualized portion of consciousness that is you, that is allowed to be separate in a sort of perceptual point of view. But that is the great, that is the focus. Unity is the focus, and how you live it, how you experience it, it's up to you. Now they say this is the great learn teaching. This is the great learn teaching. In this unity lies love. If that isn't obvious at this point, in unity lies love. I don't know how to describe it. I don't have words for it. In unity lies love. That's just that's an axiom. In separation there is suffering. In unity lies love. So, there is no light without dark. How else can I explain that? This is a great learning teaching. See, in this unity lies love is a great learning teaching. Let me put it, I just mentioned light and dark. People see good and bad as separate things, but they fail to realize that they're one and the same. Past and future, they seem separate. The past is what happened. The future is what is to come. Yet they are united by the present. And the present is always here. So that is unity. That is the unity between the experience of past and the yearning for future. And you are that union. Same with anything else. Anything else you can explore in duality. You will see that there is a apparent separation of the yin and the yang. So in this unity there is love, and the unity needs to see, for us to say unity, something needs to unite, and everything is united by this one energy that is love. So this is a great learned teaching. By you knowing this, I mean, this is material. This paragraph alone can be expanded for hours. Any suffering that you have as a separate self, because the suffering always comes from the separate self. The separate self is characterized by polarizing towards something. You see, the separate self always feels inferior or superior. That is polarization. It feels more or less. It feels greater or lower. It feels, whiter or darker, or lighter or blacker, or whatever. The separate self always feels something. That something is polarization. It means that it's associating itself with one side of the coin and ignoring the other side, or thinking it's not part of it. So in this sensation of separation, you acknowledge the unity between what you feel you are and the other, the difference between self and other self. How can I exist if I don't know other people, if I don't know other selves? How could I know I am if not for other people, other selves? So self and other go together. There is unity there. That unity is perceptual. And if you can see that, this is a great teaching. Learn teaching. Now, in this unity lies light. This is the fundamental teaching of all planes of existence in materialization. In the unity lies light. In this unity is anything materialized. It's made of opposites. There needs to be an opposite for it to materialize. These two, nothing can be found without its opposite. Nothing. Whatever you see in nature has its opposite. And so from the subatomic particles that have opposites all the way to planets and stars, space and time, black and white, cold and heat, up and down, anything has its opposite. In this combination, in this unity, lies light. Light is information, is knowledge. Actually, it is just information. Knowledge comes from the absorption of light and the acceptance of light, the acceptance of things as they are. What they are is what is, in the universe. So this is why they say in my books, this is the fundamental teaching of all planes of existence in materialization. All planes of existence in materialization. What does that mean? Something is materializing in those planes of existence. Something is coming about. Unity, love, light, and joy. This is the heart of evolution of the spirit. You see, the evolution of spirit is concerned only with accepting whatever division it might see. So that's why the greatest teaching is always to find unity in all things. With these tools, and we've had it for thousands of years in the East, by simply understanding that there is no separate thing, that everything goes together, and that you cannot escape this. No matter what you try, you can never escape this. That's why we have a binary system. You cannot escape this. That's why we have night and day. You cannot escape this. So the more you see this, and the more you know that anything that you feel must have an opposite too. And this is another teaching that Ra says also. In the earlier sessions, they said, find its opposite. Concentrate on its opposite. Whatever you're feeling, concentrate on the opposite. Unite them, and you will feel whole. Because you would know that you wouldn't feel this if that didn't exist. Gautama used to say that we experience sorrow so others can experience joy. This is natural. You cannot have, there needs to be a balance. You can have an imbalance of a lot of sorrow without a lot of joy. So balancing the self is just to accept that anything that you feel has an opposite that is happening, and that you are not a separate self. That this is just a symphony of harmony. So, in any case, I'm gonna go because I can just keep talking about this. This is what really makes my day. So Ra says, finishing this part, they said the second ranking lessons are learned, taught in meditation and in service. At some point, the mind-body-spirit complex is so smoothly activated and balanced by these central thoughts or distortions that the techniques you have mentioned become quite significant. However, the universe, its mystery unbroken, is one. Always begin and end in the Creator, not in technique. That's a beautiful way to end this question. We have one more. The second ranking lessons are learned, taught in meditation and in service. Well, meditation can't be overly emphasized, and service as well. I mean, meditation is just a passive, the passive method of absorbing, of learning of the self. The other ones are concerned with experiencing the external world, the external self, as you are simply inside out here. That's where you are, and that's just what's happening. It's the universe inside out in you. And so meditation is just that you get information, which is always vibration. There's a lot of vibration going on, and it kind of like makes an imprint in your consciousness, in your localized consciousness, and that impression must be absorbed by the silence in you. That is meditation. That is what meditation is about absorbing in silence everything. And in service is simply what you do. Service is anything that you do. Service is not helping people. It's not, doing something specific. Service is everything. Any action is service. But directed service is really, what we're focusing with the direction of the will, rather, which is not really an effort, and this is why the technique of Wu Wei, effortless action, no forcing the self, is just simply being. That is service. At some point, the mind-body-spirit complex is so smoothly activated and balanced by these central thoughts, by this central being, I would say, the central beingness, that the techniques you have mentioned become quite significant. Yes, now that you are in that direction, then the techniques, like I said, they become significant. They are not significant at the beginning, you see? And that's why they say, always begin and end in the Creator, not in technique. Technique is what we perceive to be the ways into traversing this one cycle or circle around the Creator. So, I hope that made sense. It does make sense in my mind. Or if not, at least stimulate a little bit more your curiosity in yourself and everything else around you. Last question 12, Don says, thank you. In mentioning in the previous session, the harvest, you mentioned that the light bringers from the octave. Am I to understand that those who provide the light for the gradation of graduation are of an octave above the one we experience? Could you tell me more about these light bringers, who they are, etc.? So Ra says, this will be the last full query of this working. This octave density of which we have spoken is both omega and alpha, the spiritual mass of the infinite universes becoming one central sun, or Creator. Once again, then is born a new universe, a new infinity, a new logos, which incorporates all that the Creator has experienced of itself. In this new octave, there are also those who wonder. We know very little across the boundary of octave except that these beings come to aid our octave in its logos completion. So, we have entities from another octave. Ra has said, when they were talking about, just a couple of sessions ago I think, they were talking about the aid that we have in harvest, in graduation, which is happening right now. And so they mentioned the different types of entities that are here helping us and aiding in harvest. And they mentioned these entities who are from the octave above our own. Now, it seems to me that these entities are part of the next octave. How they communicate with this octave is a mystery. I can only speculate that once they have reached infinity, they have become a new sort of entity with all the information that is there right now. That they don't have. You see, you have to see the universe not as a mechanical process, but as an organic process. Think of it out of the whole entropy that we have in the universe. We are condensing a sort of infinity that is learning more about itself. That infinity is being the octave, or the one Creator. Okay? Try to imagine it as a sphere. This sphere, at the fringes of the sphere, that is all the Creator. It's unity. But new entities, this is my speculation. This is not taken from Ra, but it's my way of seeing it. From this new infinity, that's even... language kind of gets broken down here. It just stops. Language.exe stopped working. These new entities, or these entities above our octave, are those entities that are in the known of the whole octave. Let me give you an example. Ra is limited by 6 density. They don't know what awaits them in 7 density. And 7 density is the gateway to the next octave. So those... all that information, let's just call it information and not entities anymore. All that information that has gone to the top of infinity, to unity, can now distill down. And even though it's part of the next octave already, because it's part of the new infinity, the new unity, the newly informed unity, it can distill down. And those entities to me are the ones that Ra is referring to here. And you see, if we reread it now, maybe it makes a little bit more sense when they say, this octave density of which we have spoken is both omega and alpha. Well, that to me sounds like the unity, the point where everything starts and finish. The octave, it's that surface of the sphere where everything is being gathered. The spiritual mass of the infinite universes becoming one central sun. When they talk about the infinite universe, they're talking about this creation contains all the universes that have ever been. Because this universe, or this creation rather, this what is contained within this sphere is not, separate from the other creations that have come before the veil and all that stuff. It's a process, it's an organism that's growing. So the whole sphere is becoming one central sun again. It's becoming one big sphere, or creator once again. From then is born a new universe, a new infinity. This new infinity is what we're talking about. A new logos which incorporates all that the creator has experienced of itself up to this point. Even as I speak, this information is being distilled or going upstream into the infinity of consciousness. You see, I saw a 222 and a 555. That to me is synchronicity enough. It's actually 222. Again, it's always 222 on 2022 on the first month of the year. Fascinating. So, even as you think right now, as you're processing this information that I'm giving you, it's more experience to that one new infinity. And from this new infinity, a new logos, which incorporates all that the creator has experienced in all the planets and all the stars and all the galaxies and other previous octaves, all the universe, all is being absorbed by this one consciousness. In this new octave, there are also those who wonder. Information, to me, information that distills down. We know very little across the boundary of octave except that these beings come to aid our octave in its logos completion. Well, it seems reasonable that all that is being coalesced, concentrated in this sphere of knowledge, the sphere of consciousness that is ever being fed, that information will distill down to complete this octave in its logos. So, I mean, I know I speculated a little bit here, but I think I painted a fair enough picture of what I consider this to be the entities in this new octave, wanderers who are coming here, and that's the best I can do in third density. Maybe in other densities I'll be able to understand it a little bit more, definitely. But that's it. That's all I got. This session ends. I don't know if there's anything special. There's always Don asking if there's anything they can do to improve the contact or make Carla more comfortable, the instrument. And Ross says this instrument has some distortion in the area of the lungs, which has been compensated for the position of the physical complex. All is well. We leave you, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite creator, Adonai. And with Adonai, we've come to the end of this session. Conclusions, as always, the two things that I believe are, I mean, we got so much out of here. I'm actually surprised that this didn't go beyond the hour. Maybe with the conclusions we'll get there. But there's a couple of things. First, for the wanderers who feel this calling, who have gone through this process. We know already, we've spoken about wanderers already, and if you feel like a wanderer, then you know what your purpose is here. One, by simply being here, simple act of being here, that's enough. That's plenty. You're here for that, just to simply be here. It's almost like they pay you to be at a concert, a play, whatever. You know, you're being paid to be there. So that all you have to do is be there. You know, Your popularity in the universe is so high that you're helping just by being, by simply being. Okay. Now, I will add that the more you are, the more you can contribute to this in this aspect of yourself, in this aspect of the wanderer self that is here to aid. Because the more you restrict yourself, the more you feel frustrated with life, the more you feel like you don't belong here, which is a lot, unfortunately. The vast majority of wanderers, I feel that they don't feel like they belong here, and they feel like they are alien and all this stuff, and then they go into, well, I'm from another planet, I'm not from Earth, fuck Earth, and all this stuff, forgive my French. This is the type of mentality that develops over time with wanderers who don't feel part of this. And it is what it is. I'm not gonna say it's a pity, but it's a sort of like a waste of potential that is there, and that's the purpose of all of us who are invested into sharing this view of reality, so people can be liberated from their own frustrations. So in any case, this is what you are, and the more you are. Now that's not something that you have to learn. That's not something that you have to seek. Even though we call seekers, I would say remember, it's inner seeking. And the inner seeking, what you do is that you unlearn stuff. You get rid of things, conditionings, and whatever judgments you have of yourself, so you can be more. So how does that happen? Are you learning anything? No, you are unlearning, and by a result, you are being more. So that's the great way. Now, there is also to keep in mind that you're here to polarize yourself as well, or with the possibility. You don't have to. It's not you're here, that's your task. You have to do this. No, this is a natural process of polarization. You are here. The more you can, accept catalysts, which is a lot here, physical, mental, and spiritual, mostly physical and mentally induced catalysts, then the more you can polarize yourself. And with that, it's not like, I'm making it, I'm beating the game, I'm going upwards in densities. You are aiding the whole universe with this. You're aiding the creator. You're serving the creator, whether you like it or not. Even in depression, you're serving the creator, because the creator can experience itself in that situation. So even when you feel like you're not contributing to the universe, well, guess what? I was going to say bad news, but it's really good news. You are helping the universe anyways. The one creator, which you are. And this overlaps perfectly with the third purpose of the wanderers, which is to aid the social memory complex where they come from. Mainly those of sixth density, which are balancing love and light, understanding and wisdom. So they can alleviate those distortions that they didn't experience in their third density, or in your third density, your native third density. And lastly, we got into, this is just the last questions, where we got into the disciplines of personality, what it is. And I know this is a kind of abstract thing to talk about, so we can only talk about it in poetic ways. This poetic way would be to express the unity in everything, understanding duality as a way to experience the self, not as the way to divide ourselves. And I think that's the key lesson. Duality is present only to experience the self, because you are duality. You are made of two aspects. Otherwise, you couldn't be able to discern. You have to have duality to know yourself. And so by knowing this, you can dispose of any sort of ideas and concepts of reality being a drag or being a problem that needs to be solved. That is nonsense. This universe does not need to be solved. It needs to be dissolved in our mind. And so that's what we're trying to do. I hope I contribute a little bit today with this. So much we can talk about, especially that question 11 was fantastic. I would say reread it and go back. Don't listen to me again, because it can get a little bit saturating, I'm sure. Not listening to myself, but I wanted to reread it with a fresh mine. Just go over it yourself. Go to the website or the book, or pause the video in that question, whatever it is. But just go over it again and see so much wisdom in there that I just can't do honor with words. That's it. We got until the end of this session. We made it. Question 52 is done. We can go into session 52 is done. Session 53 is next. I don't know what awaits us there. We'll have to wait. Thank you so much for being part of this, for informing yourself, for for simply being. That's all I can say. I appreciate you for being here, for listening. Share the love, like, subscribe if you haven't. I have nothing else to say, but thank you again. And I'll see you in session 53.